An oil refinery or petroleum refinery is an industrial process plant where crude oil is transformed and refined into useful products such as petroleum naphtha, gasoline, diesel fuel, asphalt base, heating oil, kerosene, liquefied petroleum gas, jet fuel and fuel oils. Petrochemicals feedstock like ethylene and propylene can also be produced directly by cracking crude oil without the need of using refined products of crude oil such as naphtha. The crude oil feedstock has typically been processed by an oil production plant. There is usually an oil depot at or near an oil refinery for the storage of incoming crude oil feedstock as well as bulk liquid products. According to the Oil and Gas Journal, on the 31st of December 2014, a total of 636 refineries operated worldwide with a total capacity of 87.75 million barrels. Oil refineries are typically large, sprawling industrial complexes with extensive piping running throughout, carrying streams of fluids between large chemical processing units, such as distillation columns. In many ways, oil refineries use much of the technology and can be thought of as types of chemical plants. Jamnagar Refinery is the largest oil refinery since the 25th of December 2008, with a processing capacity of 1.24 million barrels. In Gujarat, India, it is owned by Reliance Industries. Some modern petroleum refineries process as much as 800,000 to 900,000 barrels of crude oil per day. An oil refinery is considered an essential part of the downstream side of the petroleum industry. The Chinese were among the first civilizations to refine oil. As early as the 1st century, the Chinese were refining crude oil for use as an energy source. Between 512 and 518, in the late Northern Wei dynasty, the Chinese geographer, writer and politician Li Daoyong introduced the process of refining oil into various lubricants in his famous work Commentary on the Water Classic. Crude oil was often distilled by Arab chemists, with clear descriptions given in Arabic handbooks such as those of Muhammad ibn Zakaria Razi. The streets of Baghdad were paved with tar, derived from petroleum that became accessible from natural fields in the region. In the 9th century, oil fields were exploited in the area around modern Baku, Azerbaijan. These fields were described by the Arab geographer Abu al-Hasan Ali al-Masaudi in the 10th century, and by Marco Polo in the 13th century, who described the output of those wells as hundreds of shiploads. Arab and Persian chemists also distilled crude oil in order to produce flammable products for military purposes. Through Islamic Spain, distillation became available in Western Europe by the 12th century. In the Northern Song dynasty, a workshop called the Fierce Oil Workshop was established in the city of Kafeng to produce refined oil for the Song military as a weapon. The troops would then fill iron cans with refined oil and throw them toward the enemy troops, causing a fire, effectively the world's first fire bomb. The workshop was one of the world's earliest oil refining factories where thousands of people worked to produce Chinese oil-powered weaponry. Prior to the 19th century, petroleum was known and utilized in various fashions in Babylon, Egypt, China, Philippines, Rome and Azerbaijan. However, the modern history of the petroleum industry is said to have begun in 1846 when Abraham Gessner of Nova Scotia, Canada devised a process to produce kerosene from coal. Shortly thereafter, in 1854, Ignacy Lukasiewicz began producing kerosene from hand-dug oil wells near the town of Krosno, Poland. The world's first systematic petroleum refinery was built in Ploiești, Romania in 1856 using the abundant oil available in Romania. In North America, the first oil well was drilled in 1858 by James Miller Williams in Oil Springs, Ontario, Canada. In the United States, the petroleum industry began in 1859 when Edwin Drake found oil near Titusville, Pennsylvania. The industry grew slowly in the 1800s, primarily producing kerosene for oil lamps. In the early 20th century, the introduction of the internal combustion engine and its use in automobiles created a market for gasoline that was the impetus for fairly rapid growth of the petroleum industry. The early finds of petroleum like those in Ontario and Pennsylvania were soon outstripped by large oil booms in Oklahoma, Texas and California. Samuel Keir established America's first oil refinery in Pittsburgh on 7th Avenue near Grant Street. In 1853, Polish pharmacist and inventor Ignacy Łukasiewicz established an oil refinery in Gislo, then part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. In 1854, the first large refinery opened at Ploiești, Romania. In 1856 to 1857, after being taken over by Nazi Germany, the Ploiești refineries were bombed in Operation Tidal Wave by the Allies during the oil campaign of World War II. Another close contender for the title of hosting the world's oldest oil refinery is Salzburgen in Lower Saxony, Germany. Salzburgen,